because somebody might be able to use it.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yes, thank you.
Is he still there? Oh, yeah, he is there. Yeah, thank you, Pastor.
And now, Pastor, before you call your wife, I want you to think about how you quit telling people to read. Okay? Can you do that?
Well, I got a pet peeve with that myself because most people don't read, and it gets under my skin.
Well, that's
No,
what
I
they
need
said.
to
Something from
take
somebody
that.
put it in the book. So
Okay, Michael, what is your status with your mortgage right now, and how long did you have it?
so I mean, it's active right now. I mean, I've had it since 2015. So
Okay. All right. Are you aware that you have skin in the game over and beyond the mortgage itself?
sort of, kind of, yes. I'm learning. Yeah, as I've been learning all this stuff, I've been learning that. Yes.
Because a lot of people are not aware that they're. You said you had since 2015.
Yep.
And 20 and 22, so about 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going.
You essentially have more equity, and I'm not talking about the equity that most real estate people talk about. I'm talking about mortgage collateral and secured equity interest in the mortgage over and beyond the alleged debt. So right now you're ahead of the game and you don't know it. Okay. First of all, and we're just looking at things from their perspective only, although we know that a lot of it is not right. A lot of it is not equitable. And, they basically created this whole thing based on our energy. So we're going to leave that to the side and just deal with the facts that they recognize if you was to bring it back to their attention. All right. Did you do any improvements on the property?
Yeah, I did a little bit.
Okay. You did the upkeep. You paid the taxes.
Did the upkeep.
You did the taxes, the insurance, all of that.
Yep.
And so, and plus you put in your sweat equity to keep the place safe, inhabitable, something that a corporation can't do.
Right.
And so that is equity into the property. There was a calculation that was used that for every day, $10 an hour, 24 hours in a day, 365. After 3 years, that's normally the value that's over and beyond your alleged debt. So if you make a claim for your secure equity interest and put it on the public record, this is the interest that you have in the property, and it's over and beyond the alleged debt, you can make an assignment of that interest to the mortgage company, bank, or servicer, whoever is handling at the time, and you can merge titles and extinguish the debt. And you would have money left over. Called equity redemption. Been on the books for hundreds of years and nobody talks about it.
So I should get a mortgage.
That's crazy. I'm definitely going to have to learn that.
In the fiction name, of course.
What's that again? Two of you were talking.
I said, so I should have a mortgage in the fiction name because I don't have one.
It depends on your approach. Yours, you're dealing on business, but there are ways to negate the mortgage based on equity that you put in the property that's over and beyond the agreement, whether it's a mortgage or a deed of trust. Like take, for instance, if you default and they were go to foreclose, and you got your secure equity interest on the public record, you done made your claim, you gave them notice, and when they go to foreclose, you say, well, all right, you understand that the roles reverse after foreclosure. You're in a position of trustee right now, responsible for the debt, and they're the beneficiary. But after foreclosure, that changes. They become the trustee because they still have to give back the mortgage, collateral, and any secure equity interest. People are leaving collectively billions of dollars on the table, and the attorneys are not letting people know. Like I told you, equity redemption, which is a mortgage equity redemption, has been on the books for hundreds of years. It's not new. That's why the lawyers are complicit of what's going on in the mortgage industry. You were the creator of all the funds by your signature. A note without a signature is meaningless, but you put your signature on it, they can go monetize it. Right. So they, and check this. I worked with an attorney in Suffolk County in New York when I was in New York. And because he was learning a lot of the things that we talk about, he didn't know because they don't teach it in the schools. So he paid me to teach him. And then he tried to do what I was doing, and he was pulled into chambers, and the judge reamed him out. If you ever bring anything like that in my courtroom again, I'll have your bar card. And he basically said, I can't do what you do. So we had an arrangement where I would draft the documents for the client. The client would file in pro per or pro se, whatever you want to call it. And then when it's time for the hearing, then the attorney comes in. So now the judge can't accuse him for bringing those pleadings in. Well, we was working with one account, and he got a hold of Treasury's transcripts of accounts. A lot of people don't even know this exists.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what's that?
Yes. We can't get a hold to it. Attorneys can, and other officials. I'm looking at this. It has the social because that's the account. The social is the account. And you see all the bills that they had. And especially like on credit cards and utility bills, they be double, triple, quadruple dipping, and you're paying them. I seen this with my own two eyes.
Oh my gosh.
So when people said it's prepaid, I seen proof of it. The mortgage is prepaid. That's why they call it a closing. The deal was done at closing.
Right.
You are being extorted. You're being extorted for that mortgage, but you agreed to it.
Right, and that's so I know that I've been as I've been learning, I know that I've been extorted, and it was paid for when I put my signature on. When we put our signature on there, it was paid for.
Exactly.
And now I'm like, but I can't get mad because I'm like, that was my fault. I signed that paper and agreed to it, not knowing any better, but I still signed it. That's still on me.
Now, this is one of the reasons I got out of the real estate profession, because I was in there doing flips and things like that. If you read that mortgage or deed of trust agreement with comprehension and understanding what you're reading, you would never sign that document.
Right.
It's 100% in favor of the banks, not to you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Real quick. So I acquired my properties with no mortgage.
Good for you.
Mm-hmm. You want to elaborate on that or no?
Well, I say good for you because a mortgage or a deed of trust is a document of indentured servitude. You're giving your energy to so-called pay that mortgage that was already paid. That's an extortion document.
I guess
before you go any further, have you heard of Gene Keating?
No, sir.
Okay, he's been in the community for a long time. He's winding down now, but due to old age. But I remember years ago, because he comes from a family of lawyers. Just about everybody in his family are lawyers or were. He was like the black sheep because he was on our side of the equation. And he asked for a file from a title company regarding a closing. He didn't ask specifically what he wanted. He made it intentionally vague. They gave him everything. And what he found out.
Is Gene Keating still alive?
Hello?
Is Gene Keating still alive?
I'm not sure. I know he was winding down. He was sick there for a while. I don't know. So he asked for this file, and they gave him everything. And they gave him some things I'm quite sure they were not supposed to get, because as many closings I have done, I've never seen it. They gave him the action closing HUD sheet for the transaction. And guess what? Everything was zeroed out at the closing. Everything was zeroed out. That's a closing. It's done. It's over. We just agreed to participate in another security that had nothing to do with the note. Although the courts keep saying that the note and the mortgage are considered one. But in actuality, they treated it as two different transactions.
I guess I'm confused. I'm sorry.
And many people are confused. Yes, I understand that.
This is crazy.
Well, no, because I said I don't have a mortgage, and you're like, good for you, but you're giving your energy, So
no. I'm saying good for you. You're not in a mortgage because you're not slaving to pay something you don't need to.
Okay, good. All right. You threw me off. I was like, what? Wait, what?
No, you're in a good position.
Yeah,
okay.
You're in a position where I'm trying to get to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's okay, good. Yeah, I just need to learn how to operate the fiction better. That's where I'm at.
That's a good point, because what I do now, because I don't deal with foreclosure since 2019. And why I shift my business is because I wanted to help people to take their bodies out of commerce. Because right now, the presumption is when you go into court or you deal with any governmental agency, the presumption is that you are a U.S. citizen right off the rip.
Yeah, no,
and if you don't disclaim that on the public record,
then that's what
and give notice to all the required agencies.
Yeah, I've got a DBA. We need to talk, but we'll discuss.
Well, the DBA is a very good start. Yes, that's very good.
Yeah, I just haven't done too much.
Yeah, most people haven't done it correct, and most people haven't fulfilled the statutory requirements, and also the notice. A lot of them don't have a power of attorney with it. A lot of people that got either DBAs or the assumed name certificates, they're not set up right. They just got the bare minimum. And if you only have the bare minimum and you go in court with it, a judge that knows a little something said, well, where's your capacity to operate that fiction? And they're stuck. Because that's what the power of attorney does.
So back to what I asked Pastor earlier. Why is Eric telling me I need a lobotomy for claiming non-corporate status on the record?
Yes, and we had that conversation before also. And, everybody has their own choice in the way they want to operate in commerce. My father taught me an ounce of prevention is better than 10 pounds of cure.
Okay,
yeah.
So we want to operate operate our fiction in commerce. Okay, but we want to also let them know that we're not that fiction.
Correct.
Right?
And that's what I teach. You definitely need to do that. I call it status correction of the record. It has nothing to do with you, the man or woman. It's all about their record because that's all they see.
Yeah, fiction
Now
versus...
I do. Yeah, because under the rule of like kind, it's man to man or fiction to fiction, and it cannot be no other way. This is the downfall of many people. They bring real land man into fiction world, and it doesn't work. It can't work. It's a legal and lawful impossibility. So if you're going to operate in commerce, you got to have a vehicle that is properly set up, whether it be trust, LLC, an assumed name, a DBA, whatever you want to use, it has to be properly set up because you don't want to be in legal joinder with it. Right now, most people are in legal joinder with the birth certificate estate. You want to divorce that. You want to sever that. And once you do that, that's when things open up for you. Because you'll be operating just like a CEO does with a corporation at arm's length. No liability comes to the CEO unless he commits a crime. That's the way you want to operate in commerce. And most people miss that step going into all other things. And this is what happens. I'll show you how people go to jail. The way the system is set up right now, currently constituted, we're under a military rule. Martial rule from the Civil War never was lifted. We're still in bankruptcy. Every 70 years, they renew it.
Yep.
Okay, so now with that in place, and they went from public law, and after 33 and 38 with Erie Railroad, then they went into public policy. Went from lawful money to legal tender. So and they updated the Trading of the Enemy Act with the Emergency Banking Act of 1933, which made United States citizens enemies of the state. Now, when you come in with a process and you're not in the proper office, you know what they look at that as? An act of war against public policy. And that's why people are swiftly put into jail when they do some of these processes, not in the proper capacity. So, I'm helping people from the beginning and those that are experienced that didn't do the first fruits to bring them back to get that done. So they have, this so-called government on notice that, like I think Eric was saying, that I'm not in joinder with that legal fiction. It's up to you to correct the record. That's why I call it status correction of the record. You want to declare your office holder position, whether it be name holder, attorney in fact, remainder beneficiary, authorized, whatever handle or hat that you need to execute what you're doing, you can declare that. You put it on their record, then you give them 30 days to refute. Their failure to refute, it becomes what they call an established legal fact and is self-authenticating. Okay, then you go about your business.
So I want to touch on this deal with the. Okay, so in 1789 we declared bankruptcy, and so fast forward 70 years biblically, and the forgiveness of debts, right? Biblically, 7 years for us, 70 years.
Yeah, 7 years.
7 times 10 for the corporations. So fast forward to from 1789 to 1859, and then another bankruptcy. Fast forward to 1929, Great Depression, bankruptcy. Fast forward to 1999, 210 years, right?
Yep.
That's it, right?
But actually,
Biblically.
the bankruptcy was before 89. The country started out in bankruptcy, never got out of bankruptcy.
Right. We keep signing back up for bankruptcy every
Yeah.
70 years, right?
And they do that
But
on
after
purpose. No, they want to
But-
keep the bankruptcy. They don't want to lift it.
Yeah,
That's
wanna
how they
balance
have
it.
power and control over the people. Bankruptcy is
Okay.
good for business.
So, what about those that say 210 years is the max, and that since then those in this country have the power to separate themselves from the bankrupt U.S.
You always had that right to do that anytime you got the knowledge and put it into action.
Oh,
Yeah, we
I
just
get
know how
okay.
to do it.
I see that, but is there anything to that 210 years that makes it special in any way for the common
Well,
man
there
come
are
up out
some
of
people.
Babylon?
Well, there are some people that said I haven't seen the paperwork on it, but they're pretty knowledgeable people that after that 210 years, actually the United States, Washington D.C. is actually extinguished.
Right.
That there really
That's kinda
is
what I'm-
no government.
Is there any legitimacy to that? Because
I don't know.
that
I speak what I know, but what I don't know, I quickly let you know I don't know.
that's one of those things like all the some of these gurus profess all these things that it's like we don't know, and there's no way to know. And so it's like,
Well, I never got a chance to research it because if I had free time to research, when I dig, I dig. Even if I have to go somewhere to go after the information, if I have to go to DC, sometimes to do real research, you have to leave your house.
Yeah,
You
I
may
do
have to
know-
leave the state.
I
Go ahead,
know
Michael.
A lot of those, a lot of the offices and stuff, federal offices and stuff down there are closed. In this
Yes.
even though I'm in Texas, I moved here from Baltimore, so I'm very familiar with the DMV, and I got friends up there, and those offices have been closed for quite some time now.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I got some stuff with that passport agency. It hasn't been answered in almost 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how true that is no government, but I do know it's definitely some truth to a lot of them are not in office up there.
Yeah, so something
yeah, I
strange is
see.
going on.
I mean, yeah, you see it. There's a couple of citizen journalists that record daily up there in Washington D.C. That place has been dead for 2 years.
Yeah, the White
Yep.
House is empty too.
There's definitely
Yeah, because they're saying that the White House is being transferred to Denver.
Yes. Yep. It's
Underground.
empty. And they got these they got the construction gates up with the paper so you can't see, and they've been doing construction for the last 2 years. It's empty.
Yeah, they probably don't want people to see what's really going on. But I knew about the Denver thing maybe about 10 years ago because they already had allocated the land and everything. They were building underground and everything. That Washington, D.C. was to be moved because I think it's going to be a big event happening on the East Coast that's going to wipe out a lot of people.
Well, that's been the plan, right? Because Denver, that's why they got the Denver airport, all that stuff going on at the Denver airport, the underground tunnels and stuff like that. Like that was always the plan because one of my friends was telling me at the White House they was bringing in last year they was bringing in concrete trucks and they was pouring concrete.
So something is going on, and because in reality, right now, this country is under the control of the UN, and it has been since Reagan.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know that, and that UN charter supersedes our Constitution. because in the
Well, that we've
Constitution,
been under FEMA control for the last 4 years or
exactly,
3 years.
and FEMA is connected to the UN. So, yeah, we're actually going through the motions, really. You know, all the politics, all this is a front. It's a facade.
Yeah, it's a facade. Yeah.
So that's why we want to detract our bodies from the corporation, period. Because without a contract, agreement, or trust, until it comes the day when they just use brute force without law, they have no jurisdiction over the body. They have jurisdiction over the body based on some of the things that Pastor has said with regards to we put ourselves in that position, even if it's unknowingly. And remember, legal doesn't mean lawful. So they can legally do like they were doing in Australia. In Australia, they were pinning people down to the ground, jabbing them. Why? They had legal authority to do so because those people signed up to be subjects under the government. You take a SSS card, a Social Security card. You open a bank account. You go to public school. You do any of these things, you're subjecting yourself to be a subject of the government, of the state. So you have to unwind all of that. You have to renounce all of that. You have to do rescissions. And all power attorneys that are out there that they're using on your behalf, because like going back to what you and Tim and Michael were talking about dealing with mortgages. When you do a mortgage, most people don't realize when they sign all of those docs, and there's a ton of them, one of those docs is talking about giving them authority to use the power of attorney with that account. That's giving them carte blanche. And they do so. That's how they go to securitize. Based on your authorization, allow them to be the power of attorney. So they go and securitize that note, make millions of dollars off of it because you gave it to them. You didn't know. That's why when I was doing consultations for people who were to get mortgages and everything, and when they saw that I was requiring a client to actually go through the documentation, we want to see the documentations 3 days before the closing, so we can go over it. They hated that. But they can't deny it because you have a right to notice. But when you do so, and then you go in and you make objections here and there, and they try to make it seem like, well, everybody signs the same thing. Well, that's everybody. That's not these people here. We need this taken out. We need this taken out because it has no relevance to the loan. This is taking too much power over and beyond what's necessary. Yeah, you're basically signing your life away when you sign a mortgage.
Yeah, that's I know it's a figurative speech, but that's reality.
Oh, I know because I went through those docs. I went through those docs so thoroughly that I was advising closing attorneys what's going on. They didn't even know because they were just following the procedure. That's it. They weren't reading. And it shocked me, the lawyers didn't even know what MERS was about. And people just signed things over that allowed them to do that. So a lot of the things that they did was legal. It might not have been lawful, but it was legal, and you gave them permission to do so. So that's what Pastor be talking about, how we put ourselves in this position because we failed to read. Like I said, if people read those documents with understanding, you would have never signed that document.
Right.
It's kind of like the user
I told
agreement.
Pastor yesterday it was my fault.
Yes, Tim. They're definitely using
information, blah blah blah. I mean, it's the same principle.
Yep. Yeah, so there's some things that that you can do. Now, I was on another platform which a couple of you guys in here know about, and the people there were, the participants were happy to receive me and the information that I was sharing, because this is part of my public service. Remember, I said before, I used to do this for free for 25 years until I took my hobby and made it my vocation. Now I still have that giving spirit in me, so I'll go and jump on different platforms and help out and share. Well, I was on this one platform, sharing wasn't appreciated. Although I had hundreds of DMs, not only from members, but from admins also. But the higher admins didn't appreciate it, and they looked upon it a different way, which was not my intent. Anyway, I told them, don't worry about them. I'm not here for trouble. I'll back away. I'll move on. Because I don't need that kind of negative aggravation. Here I am. I'm trying to help and learn something I didn't know. But in the same time, if I can use my 36 years of experience to help another, I will, because I am my brother's keeper. And so I moved on. But one of the things that actually got a lot of people to hit me up was when I was speaking about the secure equity interest. And there was so much interest that I had to stop and say, well, I can't deal with individuals. Even on my regular program, I operate in workshops. And so I told them what I do is I'll try to put together a workshop and do it as a group. And then I go forward with that. And then I say, after that's done, I'm going back to my regularly scheduled program. But yeah, a lot of people are dealing with this mortgage issue, and they want to be able to get on top of the situation rather be from behind. So this approach is good for before, during, and even after. You got like 3 years after to make a claim, because after 3 years, it's considered abandoned. So, anybody that's maybe interested in that, you can hit me up in a DM. I hope to have a video done by Sunday, and I want to crush this out and then move forward. But it was so much.
So you said you have to do it within the 3 years
after the foreclosure. I say it can be done before, during, because like Michael, you're in a position you can do it during. Okay. Because you done built up equity. So now you're in a position to declare it, and then you can actually move to assign that interest to the mortgage company to offset the debt.
Yeah, I gotta learn that.
Yeah,
so I'm definitely trying to get out of this mortgage.
Yeah, because the mortgage it's a trap. You know what it means, and I think it's French. Mortgage means death pledge.
Yeah, it's like, what is it, like dead? What is it? Man, I was just.
It's like a death pledge. Yeah,
it's a death pledge. It's like, but because mort, the word etymology of mort is death, is dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so those are two issues that has to be addressed. What Eric brought up with regards of, separating from the all cap estate. And then if you want to deal in any other process after that, you would have proper standing and capacity to act, because you wouldn't be considered a U.S. citizen. The U.S. citizen is actually the birth certificate estate.
Right.
The Sestakay Trust.
The Sestakay Trust.
That's the U.S. citizen. Notwithstanding that it was in the state of, but all states ofs are franchisees of the United States, Washington, D.C. So that's why it is still a United States citizen. It's not you. They only can deem you a U.S. citizen if you declare it or you're in joinder with the estate by presumption. So this whole system under the Roman civil law system, it's run by presumptions, not facts. In these administrative courts, a lot of times facts mean nothing. So it's up to you to break presumptions so that they will have to bring forth proof to validate their claim against your person, not you personally, but your person. But see, they need your energy to be attached. So when you don't detach it, they leave it alone. I'll give you a perfect example. The lady in Maryland, you mentioned DMV. She's from Maryland. However, it happened in Virginia. She got a ticket. She returned her plates. She didn't have plates and license. So they gave her a ticket because they was able to track her down by the VIN, and she didn't have the account closed with the equivalent of DMV. They don't call it DMV in Maryland.
MVA.
Yeah, MVA. And so they were able to peg the person. So I am a co-name holder on her assumed name certificate out of Minnesota. So I have the authority to speak on behalf of the person, which I did. So on the first thing that was filed into the court, I dropped the assumed name certificate, the verified declaration that went with it, the denial of corporate status, the power of attorney, to show that the two are not one, because that's the way they look at it. They look at the two as one. And returned the ticket, returned everything that was given to her, because it was about 4 of them. Look at the cases went away. Just like that. If they don't have your energy, they don't have nothing. They need you to make the transaction go. They need your Hancock.
Yeah, your signature, sign of nature.
Yep.
Okay, theoretical question. So you put on the record, you're not them. Could you literally say, I'll give you the signature so you can do your transaction?
It depends on what you're talking about.
If you understand my question.
No, I don't think I do.
So say you get a speeding ticket.
Right.
And you've separated yourself and all that. Could you say to them, hey, I'll give you the signature on the ticket, but I'm not going to give you the money? Basically.
Well,
does that make sense?
Well, it depends on how you sign. Are you given a restricted signature or an unrestricted signature?
Yeah, see, I need to go read a Styles manual. You sent me the one from Chicago, Styles manual.
Oh yeah. Well, a restricted signature is prefaced by the word by : which in commerce is an immediate signal that whatever is behind that or in front of that is an agent on behalf of principal. That's called a restricted signature, where you sign by your name. Yes. So by : the signature or autograph, comma, and then the office in which the agent is operating from.
So is that a yes?
What's that again?
So is that a yes?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm describing the difference between the two, and you got to let me know what you're trying to do. Are you trying to, if you give an unrestricted, you're saying to the person that's reading the signature block that you're accepting the liability. Whoever signed is accepting the liability. And so if that's the case, then yes, you would have to pay because you agreed to.
Okay, yeah, I get what you're telling me, and I didn't ask my question the correct way. So if I sign it as the agent the correct way, then I wouldn't have liability, correct?
Correct.
Yes. Okay, so yes, I could say,
and that's what you always want to do. And this is what I suggest to people, because a lot of the teachers
I have a no seatbelt ticket right now. Court's not till the 24th of March, so I was thinking about trying it, but I haven't separated myself yet. So
Okay, now this is what pastors believe, and I'm not going to say that it's wrong. That, you may not necessarily have to do it the way I do it, but you do it on a piecemeal basis, meaning as it comes. Like, take, for instance, right now, you got that, and you can make a declaration of who you are and who you are not with regards to the ticket. And then how long did you have the ticket?
hold on. I'll go grab it. I was actually speeding, and the cop was pretty cool. It was a sheriff. And he's like, I'm going to give you a seatbelt ticket instead. He gave me the option. You want option 1, points, blah, blah, blah. Option 2, non-moving violation. And I said, option 2, please.
Okay. So it was beyond 72 hours, right?
Oh, yeah. I got it in February.
Okay. Well, you under 30 days though, right?
Yeah, hold on. Where is it?
You already contracted. Just pay the ticket.
Sign it.
No.
I didn't
a
sign
contract. He didn't sign it. That's great.
No, he didn't make me sign it.
That's great.
But he gave you a choice, and you took a choice.
Yeah, but he never signed it, so you don't contract until you sign.
Yeah,
okay. Well, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Oh no, that's a tacit agreement.
And not only that, he verbally accepted. And what if he had a recording of that?
But they would have to prove that, though.
Oh,
that's why I said with a recording.
February 10th.
He's got a body cam recording.
Okay, now this is the way, even if given that be the case, I'm not disagreeing with either of you. What I'm saying is that you still can undo it. Here's the reason why.
Yes,
it was a unilateral agreement, meaning only one agreed. The cop didn't sign. Only you agreed. So you can rescind your agreement.
Well, on the ground. He signed.
He signed? Okay.
Well, electronic, but I didn't sign.
Okay. Generally, under 30 days, you can return, because after 30 days is considered intent to retain. So you had that in your possession. After 30 days, the presumption is you accept it with intent to retain. So now you would be somewhat obligated.
But also
there's still a defense to this, because who is getting the ticket? Hold on, Tim. Who's getting the ticket? Is it you or your legal person?
It was my legal person, sir.
Exactly.
I don't remember.
But that's the only way they can operate. Remember? Fiction to fiction, man to man.
Yes. I gotcha.
Okay.
So
the
can I just sign it as the agent and mail it in?
You can sign as an agent, and if you have, and there's some online too, some short affidavit of status, and and returning saying that I found out that this ticket is addressed to my person, and I am not it, and I am an office holder of it as a name holder or some other title. You don't want to say attorney in fact unless you have a POA. And
this is where he could say general agent.
A general agent, correct.
Okay.
Authorized representative, registered agent, because actually, in fact, based on the way they have the system set up, you're actually considered a registered agent on behalf of the person. Okay, but I don't like to use that term because that's the designation they had. I want another designation outside of what they're saying. So if you got a birth certificate, you, the living soul, is considered the registered agent of the birth certificate person. So people do that also. You can do it piecemeal, but like I said, I like to, a preference based on the way my father taught me, an ounce of prevention is better than 10 pounds of cure. So If I already have that on the record, like I did for this lady from Maryland, her thing was already on record. So once I dropped it in the case, it was already a self-authenticating document that cannot be refuted by the judge. So
Right.
there's
Hasn't
nothing
been
for
done
him to deny.
Right.
Right. So if you do it the way I just suggested with the affidavit of status, returning it and using the buy, you're giving the judge leeway to deny. I rather operate where the judge has no say so.
Well, yeah. So there's a box that says method of release, promise to comply, and then of course it's got the signature, but it says without admitting guilt, I promise to comply with the terms of this ticket and release.
Well,
But then
that's an extortion clause.
But at the bottom is the guilty plea as well. You know, they want you to sign it as guilty.
Okay, and this is the problem. When you sign, you're basically saying that you are the U.S. person. You're in one with the estate.
Yeah, I got you, man.
That whole thing is not about you.
Yeah.
That ticket is not about you.
I know it's the fake person. I got it. And thank you
So
for
we have to think. We have to
reminding me.
think that way. We have to think that way, because everything that comes at you from commerce, I don't care what it is, because just about
So return it
everything,
with some more return it with fiction.
it's your choice based on your education.
Yeah.
At the time,
No.
you might want to
new.
want to take this as a loss and just move on. You did get a break and non-moving, and then
if the,
you'll be prepared
camera's
for next
on,
time.
If the camera's on, he made that. What he actually pulled me over for was for speeding, but he gave me a ticket for that.
Right.
So if his camera's
it
on,
may not be worth all the effort. How much is the ticket anyway?
Oh, it's $165. It's not that bad.
Okay. The effort,
It's not about
that
the
you
money.
Yeah, I was going
I'm
to say.
just ready to try. That's all. I'm ready to give it a shot. Stand up for myself. That's all.
Myself, if I was in your position and knowing the options, I would pay it and prepare myself for the first fruits, so the next time it happens, I can distinguish it. I mean, I can extinguish it right from the beginning.
Don't wait. Go to your adversary quickly.
Yeah. So, in all the tickets that I've worked with over the years, I never lost one. First of all, tickets are very easy. You can actually send it back on the grounds that you refuse for cause based on the fact that it's not even addressed to the right person. It's not about you. Yeah, most of mine I beat that way. It was just that I was using the ANC on the last one to see how it worked, and it worked. But most of them I sent back within 72 hours with special writing on them. And then I have a short letter that go with them. And I say I'll conditionally accept upon proof of claim. And then I give them maybe 4 or 5 things that they have to prove. And if they can prove it, okay, I'll pay it. Of course, I know in the beginning that they wouldn't be able to prove it. So now they can't get me for dishonor because I say I'll conditionally accept after I get this proper information so I can understand more what's going on. So I'm not refusing. So once you give me the information and if it's correct, then I'll pay. They don't come back.
Yeah, you're asking for remedy.
Well, not so much remedy. I'm asking for information.
Proof, yeah. More info.
Yeah, more info. It winds up it turns into a remedy, but that wasn't the original intent.
Right.
You want to go in and offer to settle the claim.
You can do that too. Now, that's if they're addressing you in your proper capacity. You always want to be able to settle, but a lot of times they don't address you in your proper capacity.
Right, I was gonna say, what if they don't address you in your proper capacity?
You don't have to acknowledge, and I don't acknowledge. If they don't address me right, it goes right back. And I even use 18 USC 18 USC. Oh my goodness. Hold on, I'll be right back.
I'm dealing with a ticket where I sent in a 72-hour rescission with the ticket rescinded at a 45-degree angle with right to recourse. I did a 2-cent stamp in the bottom right-hand corner with my autograph.
Yeah, that takes care of the taxes.
Right, and so I've sent that, and then I sent the judge a special appearance by Rule E, by registered mail personally, with a affidavit of common law abatement, with different things in it, and never got a response. I did get a letter saying I had court on March 7th, and I actually was in Vegas. I had to go out of town, so I wasn't able to make that court date. But I sent in a letter 3 weeks ago after I got that letter, and I stamped it, cease and desist, and sent it back right when I got it with a letter demanding dismissal or an in-camera hearing on grounds of equity. So I don't know.
Wow, you were mixing up a lot of different jurisdictions. You mentioned like 3 jurisdictions in that statement.
Well, right. Because I kept going back with another jurisdiction. I
And you know,
tackled them
and
all.
the way the judges look at that as double-mindedness. Okay, you know, the courts are administrative courts, basically admiralty or maritime jurisdiction, or what they call sometimes statutory jurisdiction, which is basically the same thing. Then you bring in common law, and then you bring up equity. The judge will look at you as you're being confused.
Being
3
incompetent.
different letters, though.
But
all those letters go into one.
Right?
All those letters come into one file, though, so the judge will be able to see the file. Oh, he's talking about this over here and this over here. And because what happens is when you mix jurisdictions, that's an automatic cancellation. You're done.
Okay. I really wish I could go in and talk to him. I guess I need to call the court. But because I really wanted to go in and face the judge personally. But why is it a problem to mix jurisdictions? Why is it considered mixing and not?
Because you can only proceed on one. You can only proceed on one at a time. It's like if you're on a captain's ship, you're dealing with admiralty jurisdiction. Now, if you want to bring on the land jurisdiction, common law, it doesn't apply there. See, if you're the plaintiff or the moving party, you get the choice to declare your law form. But you just can't jump all over the place with your law. Once you choose your law form, you have to proceed on that. Now, if you're the defendant or respondent, then you have to do your law form on a counterclaim. And see, most people don't do counterclaims. And in the federal court, if you don't do a counterclaim, the court looks at you're done. You didn't even fight. So most people don't do counterclaims, but when you do your counterclaim, then you can set your law form to what you want it to be, whether it be common law or equity. And common law is still here, although many people try to say it's not. It's still here because you still got the organic constitution. What's that again?
Okay, so we pick our battles and take our losses. If I go and pay this ticket, should I pay it with a money order and a stamp in the bottom right-hand corner and put under duress?
I don't even think you have to do the stamp, especially if you're using it as a payment, because number one, well, it depends on what kind of stamp you're using. If you was using the Fox stamp, I wouldn't use that because that's lawful money, and you're dealing in a jurisdiction that only acknowledges legal tender. So, but if you use a regular postal stamp, you might be okay with that, a 2-cent, 5-cent stamp.
That's what I was gonna say, a 2-cent
Yeah,
stamp.
yeah, I was about to say, he said earlier, the 2-cent one to take care of the taxes on it.
Yeah, but it's not even true consideration though, because it's still deemed legal tender, and legal tender is debt-based money. Long as you're in a deficit, and we were in a deficit once they changed over. That's why it's no true debt. There is no true debt. If you started in minus, you cannot become positive if you started with negative, and that you have no money, but you're only operating with credits and debits. This is the facade of the system. And what people really mean by, making money out of thin air, because essentially that's what it is. They just created a system to make you believe it's substantive, but it's not. Only thing that's substantive is you and your energy. That's why if people collectively stop cooperating, the government collapses. We keep it afloat. And not only keeping it afloat, we're using our energy to be used against ourselves. Because people don't understand the hierarchy of authority in this universe, or at least in this country. Let's stay in the country.
In this country? Yeah.
It starts with God, then it's man, then it's governments, then it's corporations, then you have your persons and all your little individual fictions. Okay, man is above all of that. Man is subject to God, but everything else is subject to man. But man is subjugate himself and put himself on the bottom rung and to be subject to something that he created. Now, let that make sense, because I don't see the sense in it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, because we were put here under him, under God, to pretty much govern the land. And like you said, we put ourselves at the bottom to be governed.
Exactly. And see, that's what happened to Israel. They wanted to be like the other nations that have a king. So Samuel took offense that they wanted a king. But the Lord had to let them know that, no, it's not against you. They're against me. So he gave them a king. And they suffered just like the other people in the other kingdoms suffered.
Yeah.
And it happened over and over and over again. And these were God's chosen people. But it's going on all over the world. Same thing. Hasn't changed. So we in this country, because the way we were indoctrinated, this is why I was trying to bridge the gap between Eric and Pastor, because what they were both saying is true. You can't negate the indoctrination that was done to us from our youth up. We were indoctrinated to think a certain way, and we're constantly reminded with social media, the actual media, the movies, the books, everything is sending us down a certain pathway.
Yeah,
and if you were not taught, and see, this is the problem with the schooling system, in which I agree with Eric, the way we were taught in school, or are being taught in school now, because in my day, we were taught to think. But children are not taught to think anymore. They're taught to recite, to remember, but not to think. So if you're not taught... What's that again?
Where I disagreed, he said we wasn't taught. Well, for one, the example I gave Eric was what? I mean, when we got old enough to drive and we said, hey, Mom, Dad, can I use your car? We knew it was their property, and we knew there was rules to using that property, right? But even though the Social Security card, for example, on the back says it's their property, we just ignored it and we didn't say, wait a minute. No different than the car. We knew what to do there, but we looked at this and ignored it, even though, and we never ever asked the question, well, if it's not my property and it's theirs, how should I use it? And we never thought to ask questions. And even though they told us right in front of our faces, we just ignored it.
Okay, and that is often the case, true in most cases.
Right.
But my point is, I think where Eric was coming from is the entire system and not just a particular situation. And the way the people have, it's like what you do with a dog. When you train a dog, the dog will basically accept what you train him to do and to be, and he won't know much outside of that.
So
we
Luna,
we
is
have
that
been
true?
trained. What's that again?
Is that true? Is that true, Luna? That you get trained to do things a certain way, huh? Or are you
Well,
stubborn?
we all are. Oh, you're talking to your dog,
Yes, I'm
but
talking to my dog.
but we all
She says
are
it's
in
almost
one.
bedtime.
We all are one way or the other, whether we do it on the left side or on the right side. Because we train, if we're on the right side and under God, we get trained to do things His way. And we're thinking, we're examining, we research. But on the left side, they train us not to do these things. And like I was explaining before you chimed in, is that in the schools today, I remember a book, Dumbing Down of America. I think it was written by an ex-senator. Yeah. We're not taught to think. Matter of fact, thinking is bad. They want you to remember and recite.
That is true, because if a student does think outside the box, they get put down.
Exactly.
Okay,
sometimes
so
put out. Not only put down, sometimes put out. They get expelled.
I don't deny that is happening, but I still have a problem that sooner or later we have to stop blaming them and accept responsibility, because we all became an adult. And we
how many adults are still infants?
I know that. I understand that. I was that way at one time too.
And that's the majority. We are the remnants. We are the remnants of society to even have this conversation.
Yeah.
99.9% of the people are robots and just follow instructions.
I know that.
Nobody stops to think.
I mean, but the thing I'm getting at is, in this community, and it is a problem in this community that we socialize in. I really do believe that we have to get away from blaming them. We're supposed to make peace with our adversary, right? The other day, that shooting that happened, was it wrong? Yes. I said it was a victim of Anna von Rietz's teaching is what got him shot. But when you go watch the actual video, hold on, Eric, I'm not done.
Hold on, let me cut you off.
No, let me finish. I went and watched the body cam footage, and he dropped his phone. He did a quick grab for it, and honestly, with the tinted windows, the cop couldn't tell what he was reaching for.
No, they had the window already busted out in the back when they were shooting at him. It was already busted out. So they saw him, but they don't know what he was reaching for.
Yeah, that part, they don't know what he was reaching for. That's right.
Okay. But the after effect gun, after the cameras were cut off, that's suspect to me.
Well, it is suspect, but still, what did he do? He wanted to argue. He wanted to hold court on the side of the road. And how many times have y'all heard me say it? You do not hold
No.
court on the side of the road.
And I instruct my people
I
the same
agree.
way.
I agree. I agree. But let me read this. And despite that, I wasn't going there. But in the overall system, let me read a part to something you posted earlier on your chat. And that's a comment by Storch and the commentaries on the laws of England. And it says, in no exaggeration, says Storch, to affirm that every political errors have produced more disasters than the mercantile system. And in this, we're talking about the law merchant. And in the law merchant, I'm going to go ahead and declare 65,000 pages of shit made up. But let me go on. Armed with power, it has imposed ordinances and prohibitions where it should have protected. The method of making regulations which it has inspired has been the cause of vexations of 1,000 kinds to industry to turn from its natural path. The mercantile system has been persuaded each nation that the well-being of neighboring nations was incompatible with its own. Hence has borne with it reciprocal desire to injure and impoverish each other, and with it that spirit of commercial rivalry which has been the immediate or remote cause of the greater part of modern wars. It is the mercantile system which has driven nations to employ force or cunning to extort from the weakness or ignorance of rival nations treaties of commerce which have been of no real advantage for themselves. Holy shit, that's a lot.
Now, what's the name of this book?
It's the commentaries on the laws of England, and you posted it on, or somebody posted it on the chat.
Who was it written
I
by?
thought it was really interesting.
Well,
It's out of
everywhere where Rome was ever to put their claws into, even after it put down its swords and put on the robes, wherever Roman civil law went, and part of the mercantile system, the law of merchants, which is now UCC, has created havoc in the earth. The Roman law system is against people and it's about persons. It destroyed everywhere it went. That's why the framers of this country wanted it out. They had to fight for admiralty based on international commerce, but they didn't even want that in the Constitution because that was the door that was open for Roman civil law to come through.
Actually,
and
I
they
don't
did that.
see any evidence that they didn't want admiralty. Because if you look at the founding documents, even in the, what's it called? The Articles of Confederation, the states had their admiralty jurisdiction. And admiralty was nothing but commerce. And commerce, it was all about business.
Yeah, but what happens is the encroachment of that law form onto the people, which eventually happened here.
I don't.
It happened in England. It happened in most of the European countries, and then they exported it to the places where they were exploiting the people because they didn't even look at them as men and women, but as subjects. And as a subject, you're just a person. You're not a man.
I know. Well, that part of it, I agree with you on. But in and of itself, I don't see it as something bad. It's just business. It's how you do business in if you're going to run a business, you got to protect your interest. You know?
Okay, now you can run a business under common law too. You can run a business under equity.
Well, as
See,
as
that was the choice. That was a law form of choice amongst merchants.
well, yes, you can, and that's why there is such a thing as public commerce and private commerce. Because even Section 210 of Corpus Juris Secundum on the motor vehicle stuff,
But they pretty much
it
the same
talks
principles
about
involved. It's just a different
it
law form
talks
and execution.
it talks about public commerce and private commerce. Okay, did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, everything went quiet. I wasn't looking at the screen.
Yeah. I'm kind of multitasking here, so.
Okay,
You're familiar with that book we call Clerk's Praxis, right? That book on
Uh,
admiralty jurisdiction.
that's a great book.
You talking about the clerk's handbook?
No, we call it the Clerk's Praxis. It's if you go into the chat, well, it's actually if you go into the file section. Let's see.
Okay, I'm in the file section right now.
I shared it the other day. It's from March 4th. It's called Clerk's Praxis, 1809.
Does
The
Clerk's
actual-
Praxis address the law merchant?
No, it's the name of the book is actually called The Practice and Jurisdiction
Oh
of
yeah, I
the
see it.
Courts of Admiralty in 3 parts.
I know, and I love
see it.
that book,
That
but
book
does
is
it address the law
actually-
merchant?
Not that I'm aware of, it deals with admiralty jurisdiction, and I know he talks about in there that there was during that time there was a war between admiralty jurisdiction and the common law, and the reason the common law won is because the people knew the law and they knew their rights.
But does the law
And
merchant not impoverish the people? Is it not the law merchant that was inserted into the system out of fraud
No, it wasn't
that
inserted
has
out of fraud.
impoverished the people in the system? Absolutely.
No, it didn't. It still goes back to 1 Corinthians. He that wishes to be ignorant, let him. I mean, that's actually a maxim in law. They got it right out of the Bible. It doesn't impoverish the people except by the people's consent. I mean, look, everybody's running around here. How do I discharge debt? And they look for some magical process that's going to fix their problem instead of learning the rules to the game so they can learn how the banking system works so they can actually do it themselves.
Yeah, but I'm going back to what I'm saying is we had common law, and English common law. And you go back to the Magna Carta and the people's right, and what we're talking about is
Eric,
rights for
you
the
don't even
common
understand what common law is, and most people don't. They throw out this term common law. They think it's a magical term.
man. No,
And-
hear me out.
Okay.
No, hear me out. So you go back. I think it was back in where the law merchant came into being was a trial back in I forget when it was, and the defendant declared some common law statute, and they came in and they said that because of the mercantile system and the practices that I forget the exact deal, but either way, the law merchant and the mercantile system came into being as it's almost like it's bullshit, and
No,
it's UCC commercial code and what we know today.
No, the UCC is nothing but the codification of the common law of contracts. It is nothing but
Right.
principles of contracts. You don't
But
need, hold on, Eric, hold on. You do not need the code to exercise the principles. The principles existed before the creation of the code was put on paper.
okay, but you're talking about the law of contracts, which a maximum of laws. Well, one of the main elements of a contract is mutual consideration by both parties, right? Do you think that this system in which it's all about contract, in which maybe 20% of the people know that they're actually operating in contract, is legitimate? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, it's legitimate. Yes.
Even though 80% of the people aren't a party to the
80
contract.
If
You think
Jesus,
it's a
God,
fair
if
contract?
Jesus, the God of this world, cannot save 80% of the people himself, do you think it matters? You're so busy concentrating on the masses, you can't see what's in front of you, Eric. He couldn't save everybody, neither are you. I mean, go back
No,
to the whole thing of this
no,
thing,
I'm not.
everybody pushing.
I'm
Go,
just trying to get to the point. Well, the only thing that you and I disagree on is that this system is built on fraud.
fraud is
And
allowed
other
if
than
the
that,
two
we agree on
parties,
everything.
even the UCC lays out the principle of fraud. If you write a contract and the other person agrees to it, and the contract has fraud in it, until the fraud is discovered, the contract sticks. Because why? They are not going to violate your free will. Go back to the common law. Everybody runs around talking about the common law like it's some kind of magical thing, and it's not. What's common in one state isn't common in another state. What's common law in the United States is definitely not common law in Saudi Arabia. See, people run around using the term common law like it's this magical thing, and they don't even understand it on what it is. Common law is always only common to the location and the culture where it's at.
Well, we operate in common law all the time. In fact, here where I'm at, if you're with a partner for, I think it's 6 months even, by common law you're married. We do operate in common law.
That's a statutory common law. That's different.
Well, but still, common law is just a jurisdiction. It's just one of many jurisdictions, and maybe some people claim 7 jurisdictions. But it's an old.
Well, one of the first things you have to, one thing you have to get straight, Eric, is when you say common law, generally speaking, you're talking about man-to-man transactions. When you're dealing in commerce, common law doesn't apply because you're dealing with fictions.
Right.
And based on the mercantile or the law of merchant, which was codified into UCC, and the law of merchants and the UCC, from what I gather, is actually the copyright of the Vatican. That's dealing with fictions, corporations, trusts.
Well, actually, private nobody, any contract is technically a fiction because the system can only see what's on paper.
What I'm talking about, if you have a man-to-man contract with the shake of a hand,
yep,
doesn't even have to be on paper.
No, it doesn't have to be. That's correct.
Okay, the only court that can hear that is either a court of equity or a common law court. It can't be heard by an administrative court.
Correct.
Okay, that's why I say it's man to man or fiction to fiction under the rule of like
Unless
kind.
you give them jurisdictions to do, and they will.
Well, if you choose to do that, that's on you. That's
We
going
always
back to
do
what
things that
Pastor
are
said.
unbeknown.
That is true. That is true. But that goes to what Pastor was saying about, not doing your due diligence. And so whatever happens is based on your effort to get things straight or learn the right things to do the right things. So in that regard, we can't just blame everybody. Yes, there is blame on the system because it's based on Satan's system. Anything Satan has his hands on is not going to be pure. He's the God of this world, so there is no government in this world that is righteous. They may have principles of the Bible, but they're spent, at least 180. So until Christ comes, we don't have a 100% righteous government on this earth. So let's get that straight and acknowledge.
And
so
also,
therefore, go ahead.
Also, you got to drop this mindset that you're trying to be the savior of the 80% because you never will be. All you're going to do is get yourself frustrated. Because I started out in this thing wanting to help everybody, scream it from the rooftops, and help every single soul out there. I used to sound just like you, Eric. I cared more about the masses than myself. And all I did was get frustrated. And then one day I realized, wait a minute. The Bible says what? Broad is the path that leads to destruction, and many that go down it. Narrow is the path to salvation, and few find it.
Many are called and few are chosen.
Yeah. You go back through history, every single empire throughout history, the masses always adapted
spiritual paste
to
in
slavery.
Your form. Spiritual paste in your form would always be better than nothing.
The masses will always adapt to slavery. You cannot worry about them or you will get yourself frustrated.
Well,
I agree with that.
Well, I'm not. Listen, I'm not trying to save everyone. I'm playing devil's advocate, and I'm trying to make a good conversation. I'm trying to get you to answer questions a lot of us have out there.
For a friend.
Instead of doing devil's advocate all the time, Eric, why don't you
be
ask
for a friend?
For a friend. Because playing devil's advocate is not actually achieving any goals. All it's doing is creating problems instead of saying, okay, let's talk about how the system works and figure out the rules.
No. I think you're answering a lot of questions a lot of people have out there. I don't think I'm not. I think what I'm asking or what I'm saying are on a lot of people's minds that are and I'm just trying to get clarification. I'm not advocating on what I said. I'm just
you're being a gratuitous You're being a gratuitous mediator. Is that what they call it, Pastor?
No, it wasn't, because earlier he had me upset because I'm going to tell you now, we got enough problems in this world where the system looks at people like us as bad people. If you're going to come in here and start talking about hanging the people, you're not going to last in this group. I'll get rid of you because we're not going to, I won't tolerate that. So I apologize for getting upset, Eric. You said you was
that's
being a devil's advocate. Okay.
Listen, when I say we should be all getting together and pulling them out and hanging them, that's metaphorically. But
yeah, I know that.
But realistically, seriously, now the kid in Utah, that's one thing. But what about the black kid in Cleveland or the 20 black kids in Chicago last weekend?
Why definitely not in the 30s anymore, together? That's for sure.
Why aren't people getting together and carrying out justice?
Because
Because
people
they
don't
could have it.
care.
Right, you're right. People don't care.
Because of the indoctrinations. You know, in 20 years, probably won't be that long. 10 years, you know, you're only going to be able to see your life through a a phone capture or something. You know, it won't be real.
Man, and then think about it. We're worried about our rights today because we had some run in with the government. But when it happened to our neighbor 15 years ago, we didn't care.
Well, it's not even that. It's not the same time, not the same laws, not the same common laws, not the same natural laws. Natural laws change every 15, 20 years. Based off the people, the masses.
No, the natural law principles have always been there no matter what. They superseded any country's system. Okay? The point is getting is your rights come from the Creator. People say, yes, we believe that. But they don't believe it in their actions because why? Like I said, 15 years ago, when your neighbor's rights were violated, you didn't stand up for them, and now you're mad when it's your turn.
Yeah. 10-4.
See, we reap what we sow. Ain't that what the Bible says?
I concur.
And the masses as a whole, I can tell you now, they love blood in the streets. Go look at the Romans, the bread and circus. Go look
That's
at the
where all
courts.
blacks, even from the Romans, that's where all blacks laws, all the Gilberts, everything comes from the Roman era.
No, it come long before that. I mean, this system was built long before Rome. They just took adaptations from different societies and got it perfected, but the principles behind it have always been there.
Well, that's the thing. Roman civil law is a beautiful system. But
Well, the
author it all up is the law merchant. The merchant.
I don't think it messed anything up. I think how the person understands it or uses it might mess it up. But the mercantile system in and of itself, I don't think is bad based on what I'm reading.
It's not bad.
You're absolutely correct.
It's when you get attorneys involved.
But what was then is not now. But that's what they're going off of, and that's how they're treating us. And we're not in the now. We're in the it. You know.
No, that's incorrect, Mr. Miller. Again, you're not understanding the principles behind the law have never changed. Jesus talked about back in the day when he asked about taxes.
That's why I said it doesn't, but we do, you know.
Yeah, the principles never changed.
No. Right. Jesus messed up.
But the people do over time. You know, every 10 years, 15 years, you got a new generation. They change. I wasn't saying that that's not true. What I was saying was that the laws that are put in place for the new people that are coming up, you know, it's the same laws that have been around since 1733 or whatever. And and all the lawyers and judges now are using the books that were wrote from authors in that era. And so, yeah, so the laws are still the same, but the people will keep getting dumbed down and brainwashed every generation that, you know, they don't know. All I know is like video games, you know, sports, all that stuff.
But ultimately, whose fault is it? It's the parents. Why? Ain't it your responsibility as mothers and fathers to raise your children?
Yeah, I understand that.
Right? Yeah.
I'm not arguing that. You're correct. But I'm just saying the principle. Over the generations, the laws have been the same, and over time, the people have changed. I'm not saying individually.
The only thing that's really changed in the laws, in my opinion, is laws developed with the development of the technology we got. That's really it.
Yeah, but let's go back to the roots, and what Jesus interrupted was the commerce. Let's get real. It wasn't civil law. It wasn't.
He didn't interrupt commerce.
Yeah, he kicked over the tables in the temple.
No,
And
that was
money
not
changers.
specifically
It
commerce.
was a metaphor for commerce,
No,
right?
it wasn't.
Jesus walked on water.
Don't make it mean something it didn't mean.
Ask Pasco to speak. Tell us.
Yeah,
That's how I get it, Pastor.
Yeah,
from reading the Bible, I get it that Jesus interrupted the commerce, and you can't. Are you saying that's not true?
No, that's not true.
That's not the way I took it.
You're practicing eisegesis instead of exegesis.
Eisegesis. That's what I meant. Pastor, remember earlier today?
How is that eisegesis?
Eisegesis means you are putting your own understanding to it. Exegesis is when you actually go and look at the writer's understanding and meanings. He didn't interrupt commerce. What he did was they were selling the doves and the animals to be for sacrifices.
You're gonna wait. Hold on. You're gonna sit here and explain how he interrupted commerce, but go ahead.
He didn't interrupt commerce. He interrupted a specific act. He didn't interrupt all of commerce. Don't you think when we talk about the law merchant like it's bad, but what did they call the store owners? They called them merchants. Go back to medieval times.
I got a question for you guys. Real quick. What's the first act that we were under as far as living persons? The first act, going all the way back. What's the first act you can think of?
What are you talking about first?
The first act that there's record of that started the whole trust thing, from that act, because nothing else behind that.
Trust, that was
Genesis 1:26.
No, the Stamp Act.
You're talking about government.
Yeah. The Stamp Act. After that, it wasn't really such thing as a government because you really couldn't prove it because they didn't have paper. That's what they said.
No, that's not true.
Back before 1650, there wasn't really paper.
No, that's not true because you don't understand the natural law principles.
But even what I researched.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. You have a tribe. In that tribe, the strong rise to the top. What does the strong do? They create rules so the tribe can be protected. Guess what that is? Government. Government is there by nature. Even if you don't believe in a creator or God, there is still a natural order of things that there will be a governmental structure.
I believe you, but I did research on history, the history thing, and I went back. I tried to track, my past and my bloodline and this and that, and then I started getting curious and said, hey, I want to do civilization, and I got to the Christopher Columbus days, and I got to, all these people, and I was like, wait a minute, I've been reading movies about, Alexander the Great and all that, and I didn't see none of those in there, and so then I started researching, and that was like before Christ, So the only thing that I could pick up as far as government, well, I'm not saying that there weren't other forms of government, but from what the History Channel was saying was in 1729 or whatever. And so they had to create a Stamp Act, and that allowed for governmental bodies to come to and commerce, I guess. I don't know.
No. I don't think that's right at all.
I gotta find it.
And anyway, in the 1720s, the United States and the colonies were actually still under the control of King George. So that's really
But
the
it
reason
wasn't.
for
It
the
wasn't the
Stamp
United
Act.
States back then. It wasn't the United States then. It was. It
I
was something
know
else.
it
The
wasn't.
British.
I
It
I
was.
know it wasn't. They were
Oh,
British colonies. I get
yeah.
all that. But the point I'm getting at is they were still under the control of King George. And
For the
that's where
tax.
that's where you're misapplying the Stamp Act. That's not the first act. I
Well,
mean,
according
that's
to the
that
History
King
Channel,
George. Well, that's
according
the
to the History
History
Channel, it said
Channel.
this. I agree. I agree. And according to the same History Channel, that said that George Washington was our first president.
Well, and that's the same History Channel
That's
that
not
tells you
true.
that tells
It's
you
not true.
yeah, that's the same History Channel that tells
I-
you
Well,
that
wait a
who are
minute.
they? The Knights Templar
So,
don't exist.
so,
Are
And
you
I
so it's
personally
like,
know
you
one.
know,
Wait,
is Benjamin Franklin on any of your FRNs?
James, are you talking
But
about like the first president of the 13 colonies as opposed to
no,
the
no, no. I'm
president?
just in general all over. No. The first president of the United States of America was George Washington.
But
That's when it
there
was
was
formed.
another. He wasn't
Absolutely.
actually the first president,
No.
right? He was.
He was the
wasn't.
first president. He was the first president that was recognized under that corporation, which was
Right.
the United States of America.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
before then, they had like, as far as I can go back, 9 presidents before him. And
Yeah. Right.
I say, what about Benjamin Franklin? What I ask people all the time, what year was Benjamin Franklin president, or what number was he? Like, oh, I don't know. Nobody knows. Do you know what year he was president or what years he served?
Shit, I don't know. I didn't know what was he.
I mean, he was a president, right?
No, he was never a president.
Exactly. He was never a president. But how many terms under his whatever he created the whole thing? Who was the architect behind it all? How many years?
He copied from a guy from France that did
everybody copied. You gotta copy somebody. You know.
Yeah, and
we're all a copy.
It was 14 presidents before Washington,
Right.
not 9.
Well, I only got 9. You're probably right. There's probably a lot more than that.
There was 14 before Washington, and there were 7 black presidents before Obama.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know, when you have a new world.
Republicans.
Well, the Republican Party was essentially started by blacks with a few whites with them out of Texas, and it morphed into the National Republican Party.
So, by the
Yes,
way,
sir.
since we're
That's
going
facts.
down this logic, Mr. Private Nobody,
What's that again?
let's have it. So, Mr. Private Nobody, let's have a little conversation right quick. Remember I said about the 0% part of that book is nothing but propaganda? You know, it talked about the Moors, and it talks about, and the lady I was on here the other night talking about King George was a Moor, and they're pushing this whole narrative about the Moors, right? You know, I had something come to me today.
What's that?
Wait. Was King George III a black man?
No, that's not what I'm getting at. Well, if he was or if he wasn't, I don't know. But they're pushing this ideology that King George was a Moor, right? So basically, if you look in the chat, okay, I want you to look at this. Scroll up. You don't have to scroll very far. If you go articles of association.us, this was the articles of association that the states, what would become the states, created in 1774. And right underneath it, Tango posted Section 2. We will neither import nor purchase any slave imported after the first day of December next, after which time we will wholly discontinue the slave trade, and will neither be concerned in it ourselves, nor will we hire our vessels, nor sell our commodities or manufacturers to those who are concerned in it. This was the colonies. So let's hypothetically say what they're pushing in that 0% thing, and that King George was a Moor and all this. So are they actually willing to admit that the Moor king enslaved Moors?
I got a question real quick before anybody answers. So I'm going to say this.
You see the problem there, Private Nobody?
Does anybody know the currency at that time that they used to commerce?
I don't really care what currency they used.
No, I'm just asking if you know about that. You got to know about the currency. You know, what was it? What did they use back then?
I don't really care.
Oh,
because why? Money is anything of value. It doesn't matter
right.
what it is. Or
but
that
wasn't really money. It wasn't really money. Nothing's really money. Everything's in trust. But yeah,
No,
you traded stuff back then.
Yeah, but it's still anything of value is money.
So what tells me evidence? What tells me evidence that there was a government back then, even though it wasn't recorded, is because they had continental dollars.
Yeah, but continental dollars was still money, just like FRNs are still money, just like gold is still money.
Yeah, but
rice.
When did they use the continental dollar? How far back?
I don't know. Don't care. Why don't I care?
Irrelevant.
Because it's irrelevant. People use
but history
money.
Is still good. History is still good. Knowledge is still good to know.
Well,
you know.
It can be still good. Yes, I'm not going to deny that. But the point I'm getting at is money is something of value. It changes depending on the culture.
Yep.
Well, hold on. There's some. They've got some good argument, right? There's some shit you can't get by.
I'm not going to say there ain't some good arguments in the book, but guess what? Even David Strait has some good arguments, but he tells a lot of lies.
But have we not been lied to?
I picked that up 5 years ago.
Listen, have we not been lied to?
Does that mean
are you certain you know our history?
Does that mean
that's why
that you
Pastor always tells me I don't trust you.
And continue to accept the lies?
No. I don't trust you. We need to do a trust. I don't trust you. We need to do a trust.
No, I'm talking about our history books. I'm talking about the history we've been told. Are you certain we have
the Rockefellers or from the Rockefeller system or?
Oh, well, you're only going back 100 years there, 130 years. I'm talking, how are we certain we know what happened 300 years ago?
We don't. And
look, you can never be 100% sure of what happened last week if you didn't witness it. All you can do is take your best guess on the best evidence you can find.
Okay, well,
that's why you got to be. That's why you got to be separate from commerce and then separate with the spirit. You know, because you can't have more than half your spirit into a commerce. You know, if you get deep into what happens to you. You know, when you are expedited. You know, expelled or you leave this place. You know, you tapped into your resources and you had either a negative or positive charge, and it promoted you throughout your existence. You know, and where you end is depending on how much of the charge it was, kind of crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, James, you brought up the continental dollar. I mean, it's more evidence, right? Like
exactly. So that's proof. That's proof to what we're talking about.
That's still commerce.
Exactly.
Yes, it is.
Exactly. So that tells me commerce was way before all this other stuff. It's like commerce, what used to see was like the bed, you know. I don't
Commerce
know,
has always been around.
but it's the
Well,
bed. It's like the bed of the sea. It's like the bottom. So everything has to arrive from it. There's nothing below it that supersedes it. You know, it's usually higher that supersedes, but in commerce, there's nothing lower than UCC that supersedes it. You know what I mean?
well,
So if you're going to
commerce,
operate in commerce, you know,
Now, back
commerce
to
is
what I was trying to discuss with Private Nobody, please. You see the problem with what I was bringing up, Private Nobody?
I kind of forgot the angle that you were going after.
Well, look
Because
at what.
you got interrupted.
Yeah, well, go back to 0% and go back where they pushing the narrative that King George was a Moor, right?
Okay.
They're pushing this narrative that it's all Moors and more this and more that, right? Well, that right there, that document was what the colonies created. It was their articles of association. And in their articles of association, they refused to support any companies that participated in slavery. They refused to participate in slavery themselves, etc., etc.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
Yes, so if King George is a Moor, are they willing to admit that the Moors enslaved themselves?
And history shows that they did.
Mm-hmm.
History shows
I
that
don't
they
see
did.
that King George was a Moor, but still,
just like we all
the
do.
point of the argument is they're not. I don't see them addressing that. I don't see them addressing the agenda that's being pushed on this country everywhere is that America's bad. It doesn't have bad things, yes. But was it always bad? No.
no, but
That's debatable.
Yes.
That's debatable,
well, wait a
Pastor.
minute. We all need to realize that we were born into a captured operation behind enemy lines. We
Well,
are
that only happened after Abraham Lincoln, because that's when we went under martial law. It didn't apply to the people in the states yet. That didn't really get changed until 1933 when they created the trust, which is the U.S. citizen, and everybody believes they are a U.S. citizen. So yes, they're
And
trading with
you got to
enemy.
say a prayer before you can even begin that step to get to the trust.
Wait, explain that. What are you saying?